Hi, my name is Pip Coombs. This is The Hunted, which is the first book in the Phoenix series, and I'm getting ready now to publish book number 2. So I thought I'd take you through the process of getting that manuscript ready to publish and a little bit about what I learned along the way with The Hunted. So I had actually wanted to publish this months ahead of when I did. I published this in March this year, so March 2019. And I had wanted to publish it earlier, but the reason it didn't happen, well, the many reasons it didn't happen are things that I'm finding are consistent with book number 2. Before I published book number 1 in the series, I decided I really needed to have book number 2 pretty much ready to go and book number 3 at least in its skeleton draft phase so that I could at least have a reasonable release time between books. There was no conceivable way that I could do rapid release, so having 2 months max between each book release, there's just no way that was possible, both financially and time-wise. But I didn't want it to be like 2 years between releases, so I needed to have a little bit under my belt, just both to give myself time to write the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th book in the series, but also to have some stories ready to go to publish and to go through the editing process. One of the other reasons why I was a bit slower to publish The Hunted than I ideally wanted was because everything costs way more than I anticipated, especially to get it to a level that I was happy with. So I know that everybody has different budgets and everybody has different tastes. I personally couldn't make peace with the idea of a kind of Shutterstock image of a person that you see really commonly on self-published books or indie press work. And usually what you see is half a face or someone turning away from the camera, and they're a stock image photo and they've been created into cover art from there. And there's nothing wrong with those covers at all. It's just not what I wanted. So in order to get what I wanted, took a little bit more time and cost quite a bit more money. Another reason why it took a little bit longer to publish than I thought is because formatting was a pain in the ass. So if you have seen some of the other videos on my channel, you will know that I tried a company called the Book Design Template, and you download the template of your choice and you can download it for a single book or for multiple books. It's basically a license you purchase for that format. And I used that company to try and do the initial formatting, and I just couldn't get it right. I couldn't get it to look great. I could get it to look reasonable, but when you converted it into the file type that's required for an ebook, it was just distorted and it was all over the place, and it was like it didn't matter where the sentence was or where the paragraph was, you'd get one line, half a line, one line, half a line, and it was just like that through the entire ebook. And their customer service was not fantastic at all. And then I found Vellum, and it literally took me 20 minutes to format the book and to get it at the very least to the level that it had taken me well over 2 full days of work to try with the Book Design Template. So formatting was a pain in the ass, and look, I will straight up say I am not the most tech-savvy person in the world, but Vellum was super easy. It was actually also a way cleaner design and much, much easier to format. You just click one button and it generates it into an ebook formula for you, or into a PDF, or into whatever file you need. Whereas with the Book Design Template, you then had to go through an alternate website, then feed that through, and then, Other reasons why it took me a little bit longer to publish than I thought it would were things like we went through a really challenging time at work, I had some health issues, and everything just takes way longer than you think it will. In terms of getting book 2 ready to publish, so I had my manuscript, I had edited it 50 billion times myself, and I had booked a time with my editor for the middle of January 2019. Because of work and life, I wasn't quite ready in the middle of January, so I pushed it back a month to middle of February, and that was when I sent book 2 to the editor. I was in America, so I was doing a road trip around the States, well, a section of the States, and I thought I would do heaps of work on book 3 or book 4 while I was traveling, because I was traveling solo, and I thought at night, you know, it's not as if there's nightclubs or anything that I'm going to go to in the middle of some of these places that I was traveling to, which were mostly national parks. So like there are just tiny kind of towns and things like that around some of these areas, and I thought I would get heaps of work done. I did nothing. In the end, I just chilled out and had a holiday, and the only thing I did was took a few promo photos of the Hunted with various landscapes as I traveled. So as soon as that happened and I was way less efficient in March than I thought it would be, because I was having a holiday and my first proper holiday that wasn't attached to a work trip or anything like that in like 4 years. It kind of pushed back what I thought would be book 2's initial release date. I was hoping for July, August, but when I kind of delayed that initial editing by a month and then achieved 0 in March, it kind of pushes things back. In terms of then just looking at the manuscript for book 2, I did nothing in March, and I got back at the end of March, which was when roughly when I had to pay for the editing for book 2, the first round of editing. So back to work I went, and everything kind of slowed down on that front. So it became pretty apparent at that point that book 2 was probably not going to have a July, August release. But I was still aiming for that because I didn't want to take that goalpost away and start slowing down rapidly. But in the same breath, I didn't want to push myself and make myself go insane along the way. And like, I know that my life can be a little bit unpredictable because I own a business. So for example, if I had 10 employees and they all had personal dramas or life stresses, those then become my problem in a roundabout way as well, because it affects them at work. Sometimes it means they change roles, they change jobs, or they change hours. So there's a little bit of unpredictability with how much time I'm going to have. And we did have some situations that took my attention away, and that's normal. That is what I'm discovering is just life as a business owner, so that's been fun. And so book 2, I just continued on and waited for it to then come back from editing. It came back at the end of March, early April. And I then went through the suggested recommendations, and some of them are like, hey, just so you know, you use this word a lot, that kind of recommendation. You might want to review that, or you're missing something here, or it doesn't flow quite right. It's more of a developmental edit at that point, with a little bit of a grammatical edit and spell check and stuff like that. And that, I found quite a different process from book 1. So book 1 was much more of a developmental edit. This time he skipped straight to actual line editing a little earlier, because the book, I've just got more experience writing a book and making sure that things flow correctly, and just telling the story better and better and better. And so hopefully that will continue and get easier and easier as I go along. And so then at that point, I kind of looked at my work schedule and looked at what work I needed to do on the manuscript, and kind of went, look, realistically, when am I going to be able to get this done? And so I said to him, look, can I come back to you in 2 months, so the middle of May? And he said, yep, that's fine. I'll book that time in for you. Life got a little complicated, and I was sick for a good 3 weeks. And so I just didn't get as much done as I hoped to, and the middle of May kind of came around really quickly, and I had to contact Steve and say, look, I'm not ready. And I'm really lucky that he's such a lovely guy. A lot of editors will just be like, well, you missed the boat, that's it, you've got to rebook another time. And they would just move on to the next project. So he just said, look, that's fine, take whatever time you need and just send it through when you're done, and I will find somewhere to squeeze it in my schedule, which I really appreciated. So it was probably another month till I actually sent it through. So it is currently halfway through September. It is, I want to say, the 15th of September. So we're pretty much bang in the middle. So the book I sent off in July was 282 pages, 121,339 words, and 42 chapters. And it is now the middle of September. And I heard from Steve about 10 days ago, saying that he was about 2 to 2.5 weeks away from finishing. And so I'm expecting that book to come back to me sometime in the next 7 days. So it is a little bit longer than it took with The Hunted, which was about 4 to 5 weeks every time it went off for an edit. And that's for multiple reasons. Number one, I missed my book to deadline. Number two, he's trying to squeeze me in around other projects, which I really appreciate. And number three is just that it's a longer book, so it's taking longer to edit. And it'll be interesting to see when that book comes back how much smaller it is. So it does go through a bit of a culling process in order to tighten it up and to delete unnecessary words. And it'll be just interesting to see what it comes back with. Once that part is done, I then need to go through it again multiple times myself. So usually what I do is I create separate files then, and I've got the edited one with all the markings and everything that Steve does, and then I transfer the ones I agree with across to the manuscript that I sent to him. So that does take a little bit of time. But it's my way of going through and just making sure that I've caught everything, that I agree with everything, that he hasn't cut out anything that to me is vital for whatever reason, which didn't happen that I remember last time, but control freak. And then I'm going to print off the manuscript because I find it hard to see all the issues on the screen because you're just staring at a computer screen. It's boring. And then from there I will go through and comb through it again and then start the formatting process, which I will take you through as well. So if you're hoping to publish your own book, what I would suggest is that you come up with a rough timeline of when you would like everything to happen. So have a look at how long roughly it's taking you to write sections of your book and how long it needs to be, and then work out roughly when you think you'll be finished. Then if your book is realistically around the 100,000 word mark, you need to allow about 4 weeks for each phase of editing, a little bit less for shorter books, but it's still better to allow more time rather than less time. And you need to work out this rough timeline to allow editors to schedule you into their diary so that they can actually take on board your project and give it the attention it deserves. But when you create this initial timeline, you need to be realistic. So you need to look at roughly how much time has it taken to get to whatever point you're at, and then multiply that by how much you still have to do. Then you need to have a look at realistically what's going on in your life. Are you going to be away for a while? Are you expecting a hectic work period? Are you likely to procrastinate? That is kind of a personal thing. And you just need to allow a little bit of wiggle room for life to get involved, because everything takes longer than you think it will, and life will absolutely get involved. So first, be realistic with your timeline and roughly what you think, and then add some extra time to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room and to stop you from feeling like super stressed out and hunting down a deadline and then compromising on the quality of your work to try and meet that deadline. There is absolutely no point in stressing yourself out to meet an unrealistic deadline and then producing work that is not up to a standard that you could be happy with, because that just leads to more stress and it means more work for you again down the track. So basically, get a timeline, add some wiggle room, add a little bit more wiggle room, and don't compromise on quality. So just keep in mind that life gets in the way, cash flow issues can get in the way, holidays can get in the way, work dramas can get in the way. I delayed my first edit by a month, and then I was late for the second round of editing in May. And that has meant that the July-August initial hoped for publishing date for book number 2 is just not going to happen. It's not realistic. July, August ended up being when I gave the manuscript, which had edit number 1, to my beta readers and or beta readers, depending on how you say it. And so now where I am is at the process of waiting another week to get this manuscript back after its final edit, and then I get to go through more editing. So if nothing else, I hope you'll take away from this video that editing goes on forever and everything takes longer than you think it will. I hope you've enjoyed this video about getting your manuscript ready for publishing. I will link the other videos in this series below in the description. Don't forget to let me know in the comments how you're going with your manuscript, or what you were surprised about in terms of how long it took me to get this done. And check me out on Instagram and Twitter @PipCoombs, and subscribe to my channel.